This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
When it comes to the allure of show business, the same bug that bit stars like Ronald Reagan, Hilary, Swank, Leonard DiCaprio, and others seems to have been a family living quietly in sedate Charlotte, North Carolina. And while the DeBoer family's star is still rising, it has spun off its first book, Until Tomorrow, Little People. Family patriarch Matt DeBoer wrote the book based on a blog he wrote during the family's first beachhead in Hollywood, holed up in a 2-bedroom apartment for 3 months to give their kids a chance to break into stardom. Matt DeBoer talks about the unusual series of events that launched the children's careers and formed his book in this Biz News podcast. Matt, you are back in Charlotte, but you spent some time out in Tinseltown, so to speak, out of which came a blog, and then from that came a book. Would you tell us first, why did you give up a career in Charlotte to go to Hollywood?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the plan. I can tell you that much. It kind of just came all at once. Our kids got bit by the acting bug when we were out in California on spring break, and to kind of make a long story short, they ended up being on the Jimmy Kimmel Show as a street interview, and so they saw themselves for the first time on TV, and they thought, well, you know what? If it's that easy, then yeah, I need to be an actor. And so we kind of reeled them in a little bit, and you know, it was kind of, I figured it was something like baseball or football or something where you would try it for a few weeks and then you'd be like, okay, on to the next. But so we had them start local, thinking it would get out of their system, but it didn't, and it just kind of grew from there. And then they were actually kind of discovered at a talent showcase in Orlando, Florida, and had the opportunity to go out for what they called at the time pilot season, which brought us out there from February to April, which is what the book covers. And so we were just luckily we're at a place in our life where my job could be work from anywhere, and my wife had just recently retired and was taking some time off, and so we just said, you know what, let's give this a shot and see what happens, and that's where it all began.
So you went from Charlotte, which is a lovely city in the South, to Gridlock City in Los Angeles. What was your initial impression as you said, oh my gosh, where did we move to?
Yeah, not much. I can tell you that. I wasn't real pleased. Truth be told, I didn't want to go in the first place. I was going to stay back because I really had no interest in Hollywood. I had no interest in California, and I really thought this was get it out of their system type stuff, and we'd get back to normal life. But you know, my wife and I had a talk, and we decided that both of us needed to go, and so we went. And you know, for me, I was thinking, well, my wife's there, so she'll handle all the difficult stuff because you know, that's the way it usually works. Well, she got sick. And like really sick, and so she couldn't leave the house or anything or the apartment, I should say. And I was kind of thrust into the leadership role that I wasn't expected to take on. So it was kind of trial by fire for me, and it was a big adjustment. You know, from the number of people to the motorcycles screaming between the cars on the freeway. Yeah, it was a new world, that's for sure.
And the motorcycles are allowed to do that in California, and that's something that people are not really used to.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they told you that ahead of time, so that when one goes screaming by you, you don't think that you just got buzzed by an airplane or something. But yeah, it was a moment I won't forget.
I wouldn't say that's a really country boy going to the big city, because Charlotte's a big city. It's a sophisticated town. So
it is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is. And I grew up also in Minnesota, and Minneapolis has got a very thriving city life as well, but there's just something different about LA and California and that area, and you feel it when you get there. You don't quite understand it, and I'm not sure I ever did, but I came to appreciate it, and I came to really appreciate the people there, and the fact that even though it's this overwhelming large city, it's primarily made up of dreamers, everybody with a common goal, not a lot of people from that area, so everybody's coming in to take a chance. And everybody's coming in to see if they can make their dreams happen. So that's a really neat environment to be a part of.
You don't see that in Charlotte?
Not to the extent on the acting front. Obviously, you see people going after their dreams and stuff everywhere, but as far as specific to acting, that was really something that is the waiters, the waitresses, the hosts, the bartenders, the Uber drivers, everybody's an actor, just waiting on their break. So I mean, that's what everybody does. Here, it's not as popular, so to speak. So like with my son being in school, you are pretty much, what sport do you play is what you'll be asked. And so with him being an actor and my daughter being an actor, there wasn't a lot of opportunity outside of theater and things like that. So it was good from that standpoint to have them be with like-minded people who were in that acting career and understood kind of the dream.
Now, bring us up to the present. What are your kids doing now? They're in school still?
They are. My son goes to a school here in Charlotte Christian, and my daughter is being homeschooled with Liberty University because she's actually going after some college credits online, and so they're full and busy with that. They continue to audition, and my son and I just not recently, but in April, we returned from 3 months in Toronto, where he filmed a movie with Neal Patrick Harris and Steve Zahn called 8-Bit Christmas, and he plays one of the main characters in that movie, and that comes out on Thanksgiving Day. So we're excited for that piece to come out. And then our daughter has another movie called The Healer that is getting ready to be works and coming out. And in the meantime, they continue to audition, take acting lessons and things like that virtually from, they're still with the same acting coach in California. Now just everything's virtual. And that I guess you never want to say a blessing when it was a pandemic, but I guess if you had to search for a silver lining for us personally, it was being able to do for the kids to be able to continue these dreams and this career from afar and not have to be necessarily in Hollywood like it was before.
Now, we need to move to the book because that
Sure.
started in a strange manner. You're not an author by trade, are you?
No, not at all. It's my first book that I've published. I've written and done things on the side, but I'm a very private person when it comes to writing. I don't share it with a lot of people. And that's why this is kind of a unique experience for me, because what it started out as was just kind of journaling the day-to-day experience, because one, I wanted to give the kids something at Christmas time that captured this moment of their lives, because I fully expected, 100% expected, that in 3 months it was over with and we're going to be back. But I knew that, and my wife and I both knew that regardless, something special would happen, be it just a memory or things like that. And so we just wanted to capture that time period. On top of that, I had family and friends back in Minnesota and North Carolina and so forth and across the way that wanted to keep up to date on what was going on with the kids. So my wife encouraged me to share the writing with our friend group. And so then that turned into a blog that turned into being shared and a kind of a growing basis of readers. And then when I was done, when the trip was over, when that section was over, I had like 100,000 words and figured, you know what, let's turn this into a book. And because it was getting a lot of good feedback and people said that it made them laugh, and Lord knows we can use that in this world today.
A lot of our viewers and listeners over the years have been authors of first or second books, or at least people saying, we'd like to put this into a book. What are the steps that you went through and the problems you had to overcome?
Yeah, for me, it was again unique because it never started out with that mindset, okay, I have to sit down and I have to write a book. And so it was just what I would say is just break down the fact that you just need to write. And day by day you write, and day by day you collect more. And then the story kind of takes over. I've read a book called On Writing by Stephen King, and he explains how an idea is, you're kind of like an archaeologist versus an author, where that idea is just kind of sticking out of the sand a little bit, and you don't really know what it is until you start writing and you start digging and you start uncovering, and then it kind of takes you in its own way. And so, that's what I got out of this was when I look at, I've got to write a book, that's such a big task, versus if I just sit down and write my thoughts today or what's on my mind today, that's something I can easily accomplish. Well, I shouldn't say easily, it's still a task, but it's something that can be done and is not as overwhelming. So that's what I would say, is just kind of break it down into pieces and look at enjoy the journey. Because for me, the work really began when the writing was done and the editing started.
So who did the editing for you?
Glass Spider Publishing was my editor and publisher. So they Vince Font with them with that company was my partner during this time, and it was really something that was invaluable because I've read the book and I've looked at the book, and I can't believe how many things I missed when I tried to self-edit and look. I was expecting, kind of in the back of my mind, well, maybe when I send it to him, he'll say, oh, this wasn't too bad. This is pretty good. There's not a whole lot of work, but it was like, oh my gosh, we got a mess. We got to clean this up, type thing. And I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it was a lot more work than I thought. So it was humbling, but rewarding. And that was, I would say, the most work that I put in were those 3 months editing the book.
So 3 months to live the experience, and then 3 months to edit what you had lived.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of fit the time frame for me because I was up in Toronto at that time, and when my son was shooting, Toronto was in lockdown, so there wasn't really anything to do. So I used that time to edit, and was fortunate to have that time on my hands. So a lot of things had to fall into place to make this book happen. That's for sure.
Now, there are thousands of books published every year. How do you get yours to stand out? What steps have you taken that other authors might want to follow?
Well, much like what I'm doing right now, speaking with folks like yourself and talking about the book. And I think the biggest thing for me is really word of mouth and getting people to read it, and then they tell somebody, hey, you should read this and all that. And that's kind of, it's just kind of a slow crawl, but it's all worth it, because at the end, what this book provides is a look inside a family where people can feel better about themselves. It's like reality TV show on paper, right? Because we're all crazy at the end of the day, and we're just happen to share our story of the little sliver of craziness that we let everybody in on. But at the end of the day, the thing for me was, if I can make somebody laugh, if I can make somebody, really enjoy their read, then I've accomplished it. And I've had the people that have reached out to me about their experiences. Like, even when the blog was going on, we had a family friend who was going through cancer, and she said that that's what she looked forward to, so that it would help her with her chemo treatments and things like that, because it lifted up her spirits and made her laugh and kind of, find the funny in life. And then I had one the other day, a lady that lives a few houses down said she caught her 10-year-old daughter reading the book at night, because she said she liked the way I told stories and it made her laugh. So, it's a little book for everybody, and it's, it's simple humor. It's not one of those in-depth, mind scratcher type things. It's just a weekend read that, you can just enjoy. And I think in today's day and age, finding something that is funny, people will talk about.
Now, do you have a copy of it right there?
I do, actually.
I knew that book was good, and that box was holding something. There you go.
There you go. So yeah, we've got the little Hollywood lights and the star and the Walk of Fame, and then
that's kind of a weird title, Matt.
It is.
Tell us the title so I get the proper emphasis on it.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of explaining, because when the blog started, I would sign off, kind of like in the Walter Cronkite, days type thing. I would sign off, and I would always sign off my blog with "until tomorrow." ... Well, then I became, by just sheer luck, I became the first paid actor of the family out there, ahead of the kids. I got paid $75 to play Brian Zelinsky in a court TV show called Supreme Justice with Judge Karen. I'm sure all of your listeners and viewers have seen the episode. And so I got $75, got into a green room for a free bottle of water and a couple bags of chips. And so from that point on, I was a pretty big deal. And everybody else became little people in my mind. And that's kind of the sarcasm that I have, because a lot of it is self-deprecating humor, but then it's also the funny side of self-inflated worth for somebody that everybody knows doesn't have that. And so, it became Until Tomorrow ... Little People, because everybody, all the people reading the blog and so forth were my army of little people.
So what has been reaction widespread to the book?
Just humor, and the harshest critics, who would be like my parents and my wife and so forth, have actually said that they've once they started reading it, they didn't put it down. And so that was great. And I think that, because they like the humor, they like to laugh, and they like to find all these, different stories. And it's not like from point A to point Z, we just bounce around everywhere, because there's different stories of at Malibu or an acting job or whatever it may be. There's all sorts of different stories. And so it keeps everybody kind of on their toes. And it's something that people have said that they've really enjoyed reading all at once. So it's been good.
Now, do you think that could ever be made into a TV show, perhaps?
I would love it. I think I've been asked that question a couple of times, and, about film or a movie or TV show, but I definitely think a TV show would be the best way to go, because it's episodic. So, there's so many different players and characters. It's not the same people outside of our family. It's not the same characters throughout. So I think the episodic type of version of this would be hilarious.
Matt, you've been very generous telling us the story. What would you like to talk about for our listeners and viewers that I haven't asked you?
Well, really, for me, it's just touching on the silent dream, and going after it. And what I mean by that is, writing for me was something that I didn't really share with anybody, because I was afraid that it would be rejected. I was afraid that somebody would say it wasn't good enough, and I would lose that ability to find that solace, that comfort, that opportunity to write, and lose that joy of doing it. And so it just wasn't something I was willing to risk. But then I found that we were telling the kids, hey, you need to go after it. No matter what happens, go after it and take your shot and blah, blah, blah. And I felt like a hypocrite. So I learned a lot through this trip, from finding the funny in life instead of, turning an event that would normally irritate me into something that I realized I could write about and put a humorous spin on. And so it changed my attitude. And then second, like I said, really giving it a shot, and even though that dream may be silent, let it be heard and see what happens. So it was a great experience to watch the kids grow up and to do all that. But for me, that would be the greatest thing that I took out of it.
And one last question. Do you have a website our folks can go to?
I do. It's called untiltomorrowlp.com, and it shows pictures and videos of our time out there, and it follows along with the book. So it gives kind of images to all these crazy stories, so you can see who these characters are and the times that we had out there. So yeah, it's untiltomorrowlp.com, and you can also order the book or get in contact with me or whatever you need to on that site.
And the names were changed to protect the innocent.
Exactly. Yep.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.